Feline stood still. She was curious and asked, "What do you need to ask me?" Bambi said nothing. "Oh, well, if you're just cheating," said Feline, and was about to run off. "No," Bambi quickly exclaimed. "Stay there, I want to ask you, do you love me, Feline?" She looked at him with even more curiosity than before and felt slightly wary. "I don't know." "Yes, you do," Bambi insisted. "You must know. And I know it too. I can feel it perfectly well that I love you. I've got a furious love for you, Feline. So now tell me, do you love me?" "Maybe it could well be that I'm fond of you," she answered casually. "And will you stay with me?" inquired Bambi, becoming more excited. "If you ask me nicely," said Feline gaily. Bambi lost control of himself and exclaimed, "I am asking you, Feline, my love, my beautiful Feline, do you hear me? I'm asking you with all my heart."
"Then I certainly will stay with you,"
said Feline softly. And then she was gone. Enchanted, Bambi shot off again in pursuit of her. Feline swept across the meadow, turned sharply, and disappeared into a thicket. But when Bambi also turned suddenly in order to follow her, there was a stormy rustling in the bushes, and out sprang Carus. "Stop!" he called. Bambi did not understand. He was too occupied with Feline. "Let me pass," he said hurriedly. "I haven't got the time for you. Go away from here." Carus ordered him crossly. "Go away now. If not, I will hunt you down till there's not an ounce of breath left in you. I forbid you to chase after Feline." Slowly Bambi began to remember the previous summer when he was so often humiliated by being chased away. He suddenly became angry. He said not a word, but immediately lowered his crown and threw himself at Carus. He hit him with such force that no one could have resisted it, and Carus was lying in the grass before he knew what had happened to him. He got up again as fast as lightning, but he was barely back on his feet when he was struck by another blow that left him reeling. "Bambi!" he shouted, and was about to shout a second time, "Bam!" when a third blow slid down from his shoulder and caused so much pain it took his breath away. Carus jumped to one side to avoid receiving yet another blow from Bambi. He suddenly felt remarkably weak and realized to his disgust that this was now a matter of life and death. A cold fear took hold of him. He turned to flee from Bambi, who was rushing close behind, and realized from Bambi's silence that in every sense, his anger and his ruthlessness, he was determined to kill him. Carus fell into a panic. He turned away from the path, used the last of his strength to break through into the bushes. There was nothing he could wish for, nothing he could think of, other than to yearn for mercy or for rescue. Bambi suddenly stopped and left him alone. Carus was so terrified that he did not notice this and ran on through the bushes as well as he could. But Bambi had stopped because he had heard the fine call of Feline. He listened. There she called again in fear, oppressed. He immediately turned round and hurried back. Once he was back on the meadow, he saw her just as she was fleeing into the thicket, pursued by Ronno. "Ronno!" called Bambi. He was not aware that he had called out. Ronno was not able to run very fast because his limp held him back, and he stopped. "Well, look who it is," he said in a genteel tone. "It's little Bambi. Can I help you in any way?" "I want," said Bambi calmly, but in a voice that was distorted by the anger he was suppressing and the power he held back. "I want you to leave Feline alone, and I want you to go away immediately." "Oh, is that all?" said Ronno with contempt. "What a cheeky young lad you've turned into. I never would have expected that of you." "Ronno," said Bambi even more gently, "it's for your sake that I want it. Because if you don't go away now, you will wish you could run away on those legs of yours, but you won't be able to run away any more." "What?" Ronno called out crossly. "Because I've got a limp, is it? Is that why you talk to me like that? You can hardly notice it anyway. Or perhaps After seeing what a pitiful coward Carus was, you think I'm frightened of you. Let me tell you this. No, Ronno, Bambi interrupted him. Let me tell you something. Go away. His voice quivered as he spoke. I've always liked you, Ronno. I've always thought you're very clever, and I've felt respect for you because you're much older than me. But now I'm telling you for the last time, go away. I haven't got any more patience left. Pity you've got so little patience, said Ronno with contempt. A great pity for you, lad. But now just calm down. I'll soon be finished with you. You won't have to wait long. Or maybe you've forgotten how many times I've pushed you along. Bambi had no words to put against this reminder, and was no longer able to control himself. He rushed at Ronno like a madman, and Ronno received him with his head lowered. They crashed together. Ronno stood his ground and wondered why Bambi did not back away. He was also astonished at this sudden attack. He had not expected Bambi to attack at all. He felt uncomfortable at Bambi's enormous strength and realized he would need to pull himself together. They stood there, pressed brow to brow, and Ronno decided he would use a trick. He backed away suddenly so that Bambi lost his balance and tumbled over. But Bambi raised himself on his hind legs and threw himself at Ronno with twice as much fury, before Ronno had even found the time to stand firm. There was a sharp crack as one of the branches of Ronno's crown broke. He thought his entire forehead had been smashed. He saw stars in front of his eyes and heard a swishing in his ears. In the next moment, a powerful blow tore open his shoulder. He had no breath. He lay on the floor, and Bambi stood angrily over him. "Leave me alone," Ronno groaned. Bambi continued to strike him anywhere he could. There was a gleam in his eyes. He seemed to have no thought of showing any mercy. "Please, just stop," Ronno begged him pitifully. "You do know I walk with a limp. I was only making a joke. Spare me. Don't you understand a joke?" Bambi, without a word, stopped his attack. With great effort, Ronno stood up. He was bleeding, and he staggered. Without a word, he limped away. Bambi was about to go into the thicket to find Feline, but then she came out of it. She had been standing close to the edge of the trees and seen everything. "That was wonderful," she said with a laugh. But then she became serious and gently added, "I love you." The two of them went on their way together, and they were very happy. Chapter 14. One day they were deep in the woods looking for the little clearing where Bambi had last come across the elder. Bambi told Feline about him with great enthusiasm. "Maybe we'll find him again. I really want to find him again." "That would be nice," said Feline perkily. "I'd really like to talk with him sometime." But she was not telling the truth. She may well have been curious, but in fact she was afraid of the elder. The sky was already light gray. The sun was about to rise. They ambled along next to each other into the place where the bushes and wild cabbages stood, isolated from other vegetation, so that there was a clear view in all directions. They heard a rustling not far away. They immediately stopped and looked in that direction. The stag strode slowly and powerfully through the bushes and into the clearing. In the twilight it was not possible to see any colors, and he appeared as an enormous gray shadow. Feline immediately screamed. Bambi took hold of himself. He was, of course, just as startled as Feline, and her scream only made it worse. But her voice had sounded so helpless that he felt pity for her, and forced himself to reassure her. "What's the matter, then?" he whispered anxiously, but there was a tremble in his voice. "What's the matter? He won't do us any harm." Feline simply continued screaming. "Don't get so upset, my love." "It's not nice," Bambi urged her. "It's ridiculous to always be afraid of these gentlemen. They are relatives of ours, after all." But Feline did not want to hear anything about their being relatives. She stood there very stiff, stared at the stag as he went unbothered on his way, and she screamed and screamed. "Pull yourself together," scolded Bambi. "What's he going to think of us?" There was nothing that could have calmed Feline down. "He can think what he wants," she shouted, and went on screaming. "Ah-oh, bah-oh, nobody should ever be as big as that," she continued to scream. "Bah-oh," and went on to say, "Leave me alone, I can't help it, I have to, bah-oh, 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 bah-oh." The stag was now standing in the little clearing and looking languidly in the grass for something tasty to eat. As he looked alternately at Feline as she panicked and at the calm and relaxed stag, something rose up in Bambi. The words of comfort he had offered to Feline had also helped him to overcome his own alarm at the sight of the stag. Now he scolded himself for falling into a pitiful state every time he saw the stag, a state where horror, excitement, admiration, and inferiority were all mixed together and made him suffer. "That's all nonsense," he decided with much effort. "Now I'm going to go right up to him and introduce myself." "Don't do that," shouted Feline. "Don't do that. Bah-oh!" "Something terrible will happen. Bah-oh!" "I'm going to do it whatever happens," Bambi retorted. The stag, so relaxed as he picked out all the best things to eat, paid no attention at all to Feline as she screamed. It seemed to Bambi that he was far too haughty. He felt injured and humiliated. "I'm going out there," he said. "Just calm down. Nothing's going to happen, you'll see. You wait here." He actually did go out there, but Feline did not wait. She did not want to wait, not in the slightest, and nor did she have the courage to do so. She swung round and ran away and could still be heard as she got further and further away. "Bah-oh! Bah-oh!" Bah-oh! Bambi would have liked to go after her, but that was no longer really possible. He pulled himself together and went forward. Through the twigs and branches he could see the stag standing in the clearing, his head lowered to the ground. Bambi felt his heart thumping as he went out there. The stag immediately raised his head high and looked over at him. Then, as if confused, he looked straight ahead. Bambi saw both these movements as very haughty, the way the stag had looked at him, and the way he was now occupied with looking straight ahead, as if there were nobody there. Bambi did not know what he should do. He had come out here with the firm intention of speaking to the stag. "Good morning," he would have said. "My name is Bambi. May I ask what your name is, sir?" "Certainly." He had imagined this as flowing very smoothly, and now it turned out not to be as simple as he had thought. What was the use here of having the best intentions? Bambi did not want to seem to be badly brought up, but that is how he would seem if he came out here without saying a word. Nor did he want to impose himself on the stag, but that was what he would be doing if he started speaking. The stag stood there in indignant majesty. Bambi was alarmed and felt humiliated. He tried in vain to shake himself into doing something, and just one thought kept running through his head. "Why should I let him frighten me? I'm just as good as he is, just as good as he is." It did not help. Bambi continued to feel frightened and felt deep in the heart of him that he was not just as good as he is, not by a long way. He felt pitiful, and he needed all his strength to keep any kind of dignity. The stag looked at him and thought, "He is charming, truly delightful, so good-looking, so elegant, so fine in all his movements. But I'd better not stare at him like this. That would really not be proper, and I might even embarrass him." And he looked away from Bambi and went back to gazing into the distance. That haughty look, Bambi decided. "It's unbearable the way he puffs himself up," the stag thought. "I'd like to talk with him. He seems so likable. It's so stupid, the way that people never talk to each other." And he continued to occupy himself with gazing thoughtfully into the distance. "I'm just like the air for him," said Bambi. "People like that always act as if they were the only people in the world." "But what should I say to him, Bort?" the stag wondered. "I've never had any practice in this. I'd say something ridiculous and make a fool of myself, as I'm sure he's very clever." Bambi pulled himself together and looked hard at the stag. "He's so majestic," he thought, still unsure of himself. "Well, perhaps another time," the stag finally concluded, and he walked away, unsatisfied but majestic. Bambi, embittered, stayed where he was. Chapter 15. The forest was steaming under the burning sun. Ever since it had risen, it had been drinking all the clouds out of the sky, even the tiniest wisps, and now it reigned alone in the expanse of blue, made pale by the heat. Over the meadows and the treetops, the air shimmered in glassy, transparent waves like it does above a flame. Not a leaf moved, not a blade of grass. The birds remained silent. They sat hidden in the shade of the leaves and did not move from the spot. All the paths and lanes through the clearings were empty, as no animal was moving anywhere. The forest lay motionless in the dazzling light, as if in flame. The earth breathed, the trees, the bushes, and the animals breathed in the weighty luxury of this heat. Bambi slept. He had spent a happy night, and into the light of morning, romping with Fraulein. It was such bliss that he even forgot to eat. But that was because he had tired himself out so much that he did not even feel any hunger. His eyes fell shut. He had just gone into the middle of the undergrowth, where he stopped, laid himself down, and fell straight to sleep. The junipers, inflamed by the sun, threw out a bitter, sharp smell. The fine aroma from the young dampness rose into his head and exhilarated him as he slept and gave him new strength. Suddenly he woke up and felt confused. Was that not Feline calling out? Bambi looked around. In his memory he could still see her as she stood here close by the hawthorns and picking off the leaves while he lay down. He had thought she would stay there beside him. But now she was gone. She had probably become tired of being alone and was now calling for him to come and find her. As Bambi listened, he wondered how long he could have been asleep, and how many times Feline could have called. He could not work it out. His head was still dull behind the veil of sleep. Then the call came again. Bambi swung round suddenly to face the direction the sound came from. There it was again, and he was suddenly cheerful. He felt wonderfully refreshed, felt he had rested long enough, felt strengthened, and he felt immensely hungry. He heard the call again, loud and clear, as fine as gentle bird-song, yearning and tender. "Come, come!" Yes, that was her voice. That was Feline. Bambi rushed from where he was with such urgency that the thin twigs on the bushes broke and their hot green leaves merely rustled. But while he was jumping, he had to stop and throw himself to one side. There stood the elder, blocking his way. The only thing seething in Bambi was his love. He did not care about the elder any more. He would certainly come across him again sometime. But now he had no time for old gentlemen, however venerable they might be. All he could think of now was Feline. He made a perfunctory greeting and wanted to get quickly past him. "Where are you going?" the elder asked seriously. Bambi was slightly ashamed, wondered how he could talk his way out of it, but then he regained his senses and answered honestly, to her. "Don't go," said the elder. For a second a spark of anger rose up in Bambi. Just one, not go to Feline. How could the elder expect that of him? "I'll just run away," thought Bambi, and he quickly looked at the elder. But the depth of the gaze directed at him from the elder's dark eyes held him where he was. He shook with impatience, but he did not run away. "She's calling for me," he said, by way of explanation. He said it in a way that was clearly pleading. "Don't get in my way." "No," said the elder, "she is not calling for you." The sound came again, loud and clear like birdsong. "Come, again now," shouted Bambi as he became more cross. "Listen to me, I'm listening." The elder nodded. "Goodbye, then," Bambi threw at him curtly. But the elder commanded him, "Stay here." "What is it you want, then?" shouted Bambi, out of control. "Let me go. I haven't got time for this." "Please, if Feline is calling for me, you must be able to see. I'm telling you," said the elder, "that is not Feline." Bambi was puzzled. "But I recognize her voice. I can hear her quite clearly." "Listen to me," the elder continued. The call came again. The ground was burning under Bambi's feet. "Later!" "I'll come back," he implored. "No," said the elder sadly. "You would not come back, not ever." The call came yet again. "I've got to! I've got to!" Bambi was beginning entirely to lose control of himself. "All right, then," the elder explained, still in command, "but the two of us will go there together. Quickly," Bambi declared and ran ahead. "No, go slowly," the elder now commanded in a voice that left Bambi with no choice but to obey. "You stay behind me, step by step." The elder began to move forward. Bambi followed behind him, impatient and sighing. "Listen," said the elder without stopping. "However many times you hear that call, do not move from my side. If it is feline, then we'll find her soon enough. But it's not feline. Don't let it tear you away from me. It all depends on whether you trust me or not." Bambi did not dare to contradict him and remained silent. The elder walked slowly forward and Bambi followed. Oh, how skilled the elder was in knowing how to walk. No sound came from under his hooves. Not a leaf moved, no twig cracked. In this way the elder crept through the dense undergrowth, slid his way through the tangle of ancient bushes. Bambi could only be amazed. He had to admire the elder despite his feverish impatience. He had never realized it was possible to go forward in this way. The call came again and again. The elder stopped, listened, and nodded his head. Bambi stood near him, shaken with yearning, tortured by what he had to do, and understood nothing. The elder stopped several times without the call having been heard. He would throw his head up high, listen, and nod. Bambi heard nothing. The elder turned away from the direction the call was coming from. He was going to approach it in a curve. This made Bambi very angry. The call came over and again. At last they were getting nearer, nearer still, and then very near. The elder whispered, "Whatever you see now, don't move, do you hear? Pay attention to everything I do, and you do exactly the same. Be careful. And don't panic." A few steps further on, there came suddenly that sharp, stimulating smell that Bambi knew so well, strong in his nose. It was so strong that he nearly cried out. He stood there as if nailed to the ground. His heart suddenly began to beat so hard he could feel it in his throat. The elder stood relaxed next to him. He showed the direction with his eyes. There! But there stood he. He stood quite close nearby, pressed against the trunk of an oak tree, covered in hazel bushes, and the gentle call could be heard. "Come, come!" All that could be seen was his back. His face was very unclear and could only be seen at all when he turned his head slightly to one side. Bambi was so completely confused, so shocked, that he only slowly came to understand. He was standing there. It was him who had been imitating Feline's voice. It was him who had been whistling, "Come, come, come!" A pale horror ran through all of Bambi's limbs. The thought of flight came up from his heart and pulled at him, tugged at him. "Keep still!" the elder promptly commanded in a whisper, as if he wanted to preempt an outbreak of panic. And Bambi, with some effort, kept control of himself. The elder looked at him. It seemed to Bambi at first, despite where he was, that the elder was gently mocking him. But then, straight afterwards, he seemed once more to be fully serious and benevolent. Bambi blinked as he looked over to where he stood and felt that he would no longer be able to stand being near something as horrifying as this. The elder seemed to understand what Bambi was thinking and whispered, "Let's go," as he turned round and left. They crept carefully away, the elder moving in strange zigzags, though Bambi could not understand why. Even now he found it hard to contain his impatience as he followed these slow steps. It had been his yearning for Feline that had driven him along the path to this place, but now the urge to flee was chasing through his veins. The elder, though, continued in his slow walk, then stopped, listened, went on, still on a zigzag route, stopped again, went on again, slowly, very slowly. They must, by now, have been well away from that place of terror. He keeps on stopping, so I suppose it'll be all right to start speaking again, and then I'll say thank you to him." He could see the elder just in front of him as he disappeared into a dense tangle of dogwood bushes. Not a leaf moved, not a twig cracked as the elder crept into it. Bambi followed him and tried very hard to pass through just as silently, just as artfully to avoid making any sound. But he did not have that luck. The leaves rustled gently, branches bent under the pressure of his flank, flicked back again with a loud rattling, dry twigs broke with a quick, loud crack against his breast. "He saved my life," Bambi continued to ponder. "What should I say to him?" But the elder could no longer be seen. Bambi stepped very slowly out of the bushes, saw a wild tangle of goldenrods in front of him, raised his head and looked around. There was not a blade of grass moving for as far as he could see. He was alone. There was nothing now to tell him what to do, and the urge to flee quickly took hold of him. As he rushed through them, the goldenrods were divided with a broad hiss, as if being cut down with a scythe. It was a long time wandering lost in the forest before he found Feline. He was breathless, he was tired, he was happy and deeply moved. "Please, my love," he said, "please don't call to me when we're apart. Never call to me again. We can look for each other until we find one another, but please don't call to me, as your voice is something I can't resist." Chapter 16. A couple of days later, with nothing to worry about, they made their way together through the thicket of oaks that lay on the other side of the meadow. They were about to go across the meadow, and there, where the lofty oak tree stood, they would be back on their usual paths. The bushes ahead of them became lighter, and there they stopped and peered out. There, by the oak, there was something red moving.
Who could that be?
Whispered Bambi. "I expect it's Rono or Carus," thought Feline. Bambi doubted this. "They don't dare to come near me any more." Bambi looked more carefully. "No," he decided, "that isn't Carus or Rono. That's a stranger," Feline agreed, astonished and very curious. "You're right, a stranger. I can see that too now, Odd." They watched. "He seems very careless," called Feline. "Stupid," said Bambi. "He is really stupid. He's behaving like a little child, as if there weren't any danger at all. Let's go over there," suggested Feline. She was too curious. "All right, then," Bambi answered. "Let's go. I want to get a closer look at this lad." They made a few steps, but then Feline hesitated. "But what if he wants to fight you? He's strong. Bah!" Bambi lowered his head to one side and had a disdainful look. "Look how small his crown is. Why should I be frightened of that? He's big and fat, but strong." "I don't think so. Just come with me." They went. Across the meadow, the other deer was busy biting at grass, and did not notice them until they had come quite a long way out onto the meadow. He immediately ran out to meet them. He made joyful, playful jumps, and again seemed to be very childlike. Bambi and Feline were puzzled and waited for him. Now he was just a few steps away. Like them, he stood still. After a little while he asked, "Don't you recognize me?" Bambi had lowered his head, ready for combat. "Do you know us?" he replied. The stranger interrupted him. "But Bambi," he called, full of admonishment but trusting. Bambi became hesitant when he heard his name being used. The sound of this voice tugged at some kind of memory in his heart, but Feline made no delay and jumped forward to meet the stranger. "Gobbo!" she exclaimed, and she was silent. She stood there without a word, without moving. She had lost her breath completely. "Fräulein," said Gobbo gently. "Fräulein, sister, you recognize me." He went to her and kissed her on the mouth. Suddenly the tears began to flow down his cheeks. Feline cried too, and she was unable to speak. "But, Gobbo," Bambi began. His voice quivered, and he was very excited. He was deeply touched and astonished beyond measure. "Gobbo, aren't you dead?" Gobbo laughed. "You can see, can't you?" "I think it's easy enough to see I'm not dead." But that time in the snow, Bambi persisted. That time, Gobbo lowered his head bashfully. That time it was him who saved me. And where have you been all this time? Asked Feline now in astonishment. Gobbo answered, With him. I've been with him all this time. He became silent, looked at Feline and Bambi, and greatly enjoyed the sight of their helpless astonishment. Then he added, Yes, my dear friends, I have had many new experiences, more than all of you put together here in this forest of yours. It sounded a little boastful, but they still did not notice that. They were too taken up with the enormity of their surprise. Tell us about them, exclaimed Feline, unable to control herself. Well, said Gobbo complacently, I could tell you about them all day long and wouldn't have told you everything. Bambi insisted. Go on, then, tell us. Gobbo went over to Feline and became serious. Is Mother still alive? He asked timidly and quietly. Yes, Feline cheerfully declared. She's alive. I haven't seen her for a long time, though. I want to go and see her straight away, said Gobbo. Are you coming with me? And off they went. All along the way they were silent. Bambi and Feline could feel Gobbo's impatient yearning to see his mother, and that's why neither of them said anything. Gobbo strode hurriedly forward and said nothing. They did nothing to stop him, except that now and then, when he blindly ran through a place where the paths crossed, always running straight ahead, or when in sudden haste he rushed into another direction, they would quietly call to him. This way, Bambi would whisper, or Feline would say, No, it goes round here now. A couple times they had to go across broad clearings. They noticed that Gobbo never stopped at the edge of the trees, never even glanced around to see that it was safe before he went out into the open. He would simply run out there with no caution at all. Bambi and Feline looked at each other in amazement whenever that happened, but they said nothing and hesitantly followed Gobbo. They had to wander about in this way, searching and going up and down for a long time. Gobbo suddenly recognized the paths he had used in his childhood. He looked at them in wonder, and it did not occur to him that Bambi and Feline had led him to them. He looked round at them and declared, What do you think of that? Look how good I was at finding my way here. They said nothing. They merely once more looked at each other. Shortly afterwards they came to a small chamber in the foliage. Here, called Feline as she slipped into it. Gobbo followed her and then stopped. It was the chamber where they both had been born, where they had lived as little children with their mother. Gobbo and Feline looked close into each other's eyes. They said not a word. Feline kissed her brother gently on his lips. Then they hurried on. They probably spent another hour going up and down. The sun shone more and more brightly through the twigs. The forest became more and more quiet. It was time to lie down and rest. Gobbo, though, did not feel tired. He hurried forward, breathed heavily because of his impatient excitement, and looked around without any plan. He flinched when a weasel rushed out from the long grass and passed under him. He nearly stepped on the pheasants who were pressed close down to the ground, and when they flew up in front of him with loud flapping of wing and told him off, he was very alarmed. Bambi was amazed at how unfamiliar he seemed with everything and how he proceeded as if blind. Gobbo stopped and turned to the two of them. We can't find her, he exclaimed in bewilderment. Feline soothed him. We will do soon, she said with emotion. Not long now, Gobbo. She looked at him. He was once again wearing that disheartened expression that she knew so well. Should we call for her? She said with a grin. Should we start calling again like we used to when we were still children? Bambi continued walking, just a few steps, and then he caught a glimpse of Auntie Enna. She had already lain down to rest and lay without moving in the shadow of a hazel bush, very near. At last, he said to himself. At that moment Gobbo and Feline arrived. All three of them stood beside each other and looked over at Ina. She had quietly raised her head and looked sleepily at them. Gobbo made a few hesitant steps forward and gently called, Mother! As if snatched up by a thunderbolt, Ina was no longer lying down but up on her feet and standing as if cemented into position. Gobo quickly jumped to her. "Mother," he began again. He wanted to speak but could not utter a word. His mother looked closely into his eyes. She began to stand with less stiffness. She was shaking so much that wave after wave ran over her back and shoulders. She asked no questions. She did not ask for an explanation, not for any account of what had happened. Slowly she kissed Gobo on his lips, kissed his cheeks, his neck, without cease. She washed him with her kisses, just as she had done when she had given birth to him. Bambi and Feline had left. Chapter 17. They stood together in the middle of a thicket in a small clearing, and Gobo told them about where he had been. Their friend the hare sat there too, raised his ears in amazement as he listened tensely, and let them sink again in his awe at what he heard, only to raise them again immediately after. The magpie squatted on the lowest twig of a young beech tree and listened in astonishment. The jay sat uneasily nearby on an ash tree, sometimes screeching in his amazement. A pair of pheasants they knew had found their way there with their wives and children. They craned their necks in wonderment as they listened, drew them back in, turned their heads here and there, and remained speechless. The squirrel bounded in and moved in a way that showed he was very excited. He soon slipped down the ground, ran up one or other tree, then leant back on his erected tail and showed his white breast. He continually wanted to interrupt Gobo, wanted to say something, but each time all those around him ordered him to be quiet. He told them about how he had lain helpless in the snow and waited for death. "It was the dogs who found me," he said. "Those dogs are terrifying. They're absolutely the most terrifying things in the whole wide world. Their throats are full of blood, their voices are full of anger and without mercy." He looked round at everyone there and went on. "But, well, afterwards I played with them as if we were all equal. He was very proud of himself. I don't need to be scared of them any more because now we're all good friends. Still, though, when they start to get angry, there's a thumping in my head, and my heart gets quite stiff. But they don't always mean it in such a nasty way, and, as I've just said, I'm their friend now, but there's so much power in their voices, it's horrible." He became silent. "Go on, then," Feline insisted. Gobo looked at her. "Well, back then they would have torn me limb from limb, but then he came along." Gobo paused. The others could scarcely breathe. "Yes," said Gobo. "Then he came along. He called the dogs off, and they immediately became quite quiet. He called to them again, and they lay motionless on the ground in front of him. Then he lifted me up. I screamed, but he stroked me. He held me gently pressed onto his chest. He didn't hurt me. And then he carried me off," Feline interrupted him. "What do you mean, carried you?" Gobo began to explain in detail and with some self-importance. "It's very easy," interjected Bambi. "Think of the squirrel, Feline, what he does when he's holding a nut and carries it away." Now the squirrel wanted a chance to speak at last. "A cousin of mine," he began with enthusiasm, but the others immediately insisted, "Be quiet, be quiet." "Let Gobo carry on speaking." The squirrel had to stay silent. He was cowed and bewildered, pressed his forepaws against his white breast, and turned to the magpie to speak just to him. "I was saying a cousin of mine," but the magpie simply turned his back on him. Gobo told them of marvelous things. It's cold outside, and the storm is howling. But indoors, with him, there's no wind, and it's as warm as in summer. "Hatch!" screeched the jay. "Outside, the rain is lashing down from the sky so that everything is in water. But indoors, with him, there's not a drop of rain, and you stay dry." The pheasants twitched their necks up high and turned their heads. "When everywhere outside was deep in snow, I was inside and nice and warm. I was even quite hot, and he gave me hay to eat, chestnuts, potatoes, turnips, everything I could have wished for. "Hey!" they all asked in one voice, astonished, incredulous, excited. "Fresh, sweet hay," Gobbo repeated calmly, and looked triumphantly round at them. The squirrel tried to squeeze in his voice. "A cousin of mine. Just be quiet," the others ordered. And Feline asked Gobbo vigorously, "Where did he get hay from, and all those other things, in the winter?" "He grows it," answered Gobbo. "Whatever he wants, he grows it, and when he wants it, it's there for him." Feline continued asking questions. "Weren't you afraid, Gobbo, all the time you were with him?" Gobbo thought himself very clever and grinned. "My dear Feline, I wasn't afraid, not any more. After all, I knew he didn't want to do anything to hurt me. Why should I have been afraid? You all think he's very nasty, but he's not nasty. When he likes anyone, when anyone does something for him, he's nice, lovely and nice. There's no one in the whole wide world who could be as nice as he is." Suddenly, as Gobbo was speaking in this way, an elder emerged silently from the bushes. Gobbo did not notice him and continued speaking, but all the others had seen the elder and held their breath in awe of him. The elder stood there without moving and watched Gobbo with deep and serious eyes. Gobbo said, "And it wasn't just him, it was his children. They loved me too, and his wife, and everyone. They stroked me, gave me food, and played with me." He broke off. He had seen the elder. Everyone became silent. Then the elder, in his calm and authoritative voice, asked, "What's that stripe on your neck?" Everyone looked at him and became aware for the first time of the dark stripe made up of compressed and eroded hair that went round Gobbo's neck. Gobbo answered the elder uncertainly. That's from the collar I wore. It's his collar, and yes, and it's a great honor to wear his collar. He became confused and stammered. All were silent. The elder kept a sad and piercing look on Gobbo for a long time. "You poor thing," he said gently. Then he turned round and was gone. In the silence that followed from this disturbance, the squirrel started to chatter. "You see? A cousin of mine was there with him too. He'd caught him and locked him in, oh, for a very long time, till one day my cousin, but no one was listening to the squirrel. They all went away." Chapter 18. One day Marina turned up again. She was already nearly grown up when Gobbo disappeared, but she was almost never to be seen since then. She held herself apart and went on her own solitary ways. She had always had a slight build and looked quite young, but she was serious and quiet and was more gentle than anyone else. Now she had heard from the squirrel, from jays and magpies, from thrush and pheasant that Gobbo had come back home and had had wonderful experiences. There she appeared and wanted to see him. Gobbo's mother was very proud and happy about her visit. Most of all, Gobbo's mother was very proud of how happy she seemed. She was glad that the entire forest was talking about her son. She wallowed in his fame, and she wanted everyone to acknowledge that Gobbo was the cleverest, the most capable, and the best. "What do you think, Marina?" she called. "What do you think of Gobbo?" She did not wait for an answer, but just continued. "Can you still remember that time when Mrs. Nettler said he wouldn't amount to much because he shivered a bit in the cold? And can you remember how she prophesied I'd never get much joy from him?" "Gobbo certainly gave you enough to worry about," Marina answered. "That's all in the past," Gobbo's mother declared, and was very surprised that anyone could still be thinking of these things. "Oh, I feel so sorry about poor Mrs. Nettler. It's such a shame that she's no longer alive and can't see what my Gobbo has made of himself." "Yes, poor Mrs. Nettler," said Marina gently. "It's a pity about her." Gobbo enjoyed hearing his mother praise him like this. It pleased him. He stood there and felt as good as if standing in warm sunshine when he heard these praises. His mother said to Marina, "Even the old prince came to see Gobbo. She said it in a way that was secretive, in a whisper and celebratory." He's never let any of us catch a glimpse of him, but when it was Gobo he came." "Why did he call me a poor thing?" asked Gobo, sounding very discontented. "I'd like to know what that was supposed to mean." "Don't you worry about that," his mother reassured him. "He's very old and a bit odd." But now finally said what was on his mind. "All this time it's been going round my head what he meant by that. You poor thing. I'm not poor, I'm not unlucky, I'm very lucky. I've seen more, I've had more experiences than anyone else. I know more about the world and about life than anyone here in the forest. What do you think, Morena?" "Yes," she said, "there's certainly no one who can gainsay that." From that day on, Morena and Gobo were always together. Chapter 19. Bambi looked for the elder. He would walk around all through the nights, wandered about at the time the sun rose and when the morning sky was red, all along uncharted ways without Feline. There were times when he still felt an urge to go to her. Sometimes he was still as happy to be with her as he had been before. He found it beautiful to walk about with her, to hear her chatting, to have a meal with her at the edge of a thicket. But now these were things that did not satisfy him as much as they had done. Before, it was rare for him to think of the elder when he was with Feline, and even then it was only fleetingly. Now he was out searching for the elder. He felt an inexplicable yearning to see him, and remembered about Feline only once. He could always find her whenever he wanted her. He felt little urge to be together with the others, though, Gobbo or Auntie Enna. He avoided them whenever he could. Bambi was unable to stop thinking about the phrase that the elder had used about Gobbo. He had been remarkably struck by it. From the first day that he had come back, Gobbo's reappearance had seriously disturbed him. Bambi did not know why, but when Gobbo looked at him it immediately seemed to make him suffer. Bambi was ashamed of Gobbo but did not know why. He was worried about him without knowing why. But now, whenever he was with the incautious, self-conscious, complacent, and haughty Gobbo, that phrase came to his mind. "You poor thing." He could not get it out of his head. But one dark night, in which Bambi had once again assured the owlet, just to please him, that he had been dreadfully startled by him, it suddenly occurred to Bambi to ask where the elder might be. The owlet replied in his cooing voice that he did not have the slightest idea, but Bambi could see that he did not really want to say. "No," he said, "I don't believe you. You're so clever you know about everything that goes on in the forest. I'm sure you know where the elder is hiding." The owlet went back down into a nice soft gray-brown ball, turned his big clever eyes a little, as he always did when he felt like it, and asked, "Well then, do you really have such respect for me?" "Why's that, then?" Bambi did not hesitate. "Because you're so wise," he said candidly, "and despite that you're such fun and so friendly, and because you can frighten others so well." "That's so clever to startle others, so very clever. I wish I could do that. That would be very useful for me." The owlet had sunk his beak deep into his breast feathers and was pleased. "Well," he said, "I know that the elder likes your company. Do you think so?" exclaimed Bambi as the owlet spoke, and his heart began to beat with joy. "Yes, I'm sure of it," answered the owlet. "He likes your company, and that's why I think I might dare to tell you where he is now." He pulled his feathers down against his body and suddenly looked quite thin again. "Do you know that deep gorge where the willows are?" "Yes," Bambi nodded. "Do you know the thicket of oak trees on the other side?" "No," Bambi admitted. "I've never been on the other side." "Now listen carefully," the owlet whispered. "On the other side there's a thicket of oak trees. You have to go through there, and you come to an area of bushes, hazel and white poplars, hawthorns and privet. In the middle there you'll need to find an old beech tree that's been broken down by the wind. It won't be as easy for you to find down there on the ground, certainly not as easy as it is from up in the air. That's where the elder lives. under the trunk of that tree. But don't say I told you. Under the trunk? Yes, the owlet laughed. There's a dip in the ground there. The hollow trunk lies over it. That's where he is. Thank you, said Bambi with enthusiasm. I don't know whether I'll be able to find him, but thank you 1,000 times. He hurried away. Making no sound, the owlet flew along behind him, and close above him he began to screech. Yui! Oui? Bambi was startled. Did I shock you? The owlet asked. Yes, he stuttered, and this time he was telling the truth. The owlet felt satisfied with himself and cooed, I just wanted to remind you. Don't say I told you. Of course I won't, Bambi assured him, and he ran off. When he reached the gorge, the elder emerged from the darkness of chamber right in front of him, so silently and so suddenly that Bambi was greatly startled once again. I'm not there any more where you hope to find me, the elder said. Bambi said nothing. What do you want from me? The elder asked. Nothing, stuttered Bambi. Oh, nothing. Do forgive me. After a pause, the elder said gently, It wasn't just today that you started looking for me. He waited. Bambi said nothing. The elder continued, You passed quite close to me twice yesterday, and twice this morning too, very close. Why, Bambi gathered up his courage, why did you say that about Gobbo? Do you think I was mistaken? No, Bambi declared with a passion, no. I think you must be right. The elder nodded very slightly, and his eyes looked at Bambi with more benevolence than ever before. Bambi said to these eyes, But why? I can't understand it. It's enough that you think so. You'll understand it later. Farewell. Chapter 20. It was not long before everyone noticed that Gobbo had an odd and puzzling habit. He slept at night when all the others were awake and moving about. But by day, when all the others sought out a place to hide and sleep, he would cheerfully walk off somewhere. And when he felt like it, he would go, without hesitation, out of the thick woods and stand in full daylight in the middle of the meadow with no worry at all. Bambi was no longer able to keep quiet about this. Do you not think of the danger? He asked. No, came Gobbo's simple answer. There is no danger for me. Bambi, love, Gobbo's mother put in. You're forgetting that he is a friend of his. Gobbo can afford to allow himself more than you can or anyone else. And she was very proud of this. Bambi said no more. One day Gobbo commented to him, Do you know? Sometimes it strikes me as odd that I can eat here like this, whenever I want to and wherever I want to. Bambi did not understand. What's so odd about that? That's what we all do. Gobbo thought about this and said, Yes, well, that's you. Bit with me, it's a bit different. I've got used to having my food brought to me and that they'll call me when it's ready. Bambi looked at Gobbo with pity, looked at Auntie Ina, at Feline and Morena. But they just smiled and admired Gobbo. I think, Feline began, I think you'll find it hard to get used to the winter, Gobbo. For us, outside in the winter, there is no hay at all, no turnips, no potatoes. That's true, answered Gobbo thoughtfully. But if it gets too hard for me, I'll just go back to 'em. Why should I go hungry? I really don't need to. Without a word, Bambi turned round and walked away. Gobbo now was alone with Morena, and he began to talk about Bambi. He doesn't understand me, he said. Bambi is good, but he thinks I'm still just stupid little Gobbo like I used to be. He still can't understand that I've been changed into something special. The danger. Why is he always on about danger? I'm sure he means the best for me. But danger is something for him and for those like him, not for me. Morena agreed with him. She loved him, and Gobbo loved her, and the two of them were very happy. You see, he said to her, no one understands me as well as you do. Anyway, I can't complain. Everyone respects and honors me, but it's you who understands me best. The others, I've told them so many times how good he is, but they won't listen to me. I'm sure they don't think I'm lying, but they keep on thinking he must be terrible. I always believed in him, said Morena with enthusiasm. Really? Gobbo replied glibly. Don't you remember, Morena went on, that day when you stayed lying in the snow? I said that one day he would come to us here in the woods and play with us. No, retorted Gobbo, speaking very slowly. I can't remember that at all. A couple of weeks went by, and one morning, just as the sun was rising, Bambi and Feline, Gobbo and Mareni were all together in the old thicket of hazel bushes that they saw as home. Bambi and Feline had just come back home from their wanderings. They had gone past the oak and wanted to seek out their place to rest when they came across Gobbo and Morena. Gobbo was just about to go out onto the meadow. "Stay here with us," said Bambi. "It'll soon be broad daylight. No one goes out into the open at this time." "Ridiculous," Gobbo mocked. "If no one goes, I go." He strode away. Morena followed him. Bambi and Feline stayed where they were. "Come on," said Bambi angrily to Feline. "Come on. He can just do what he wants." They wanted to go on. Then outside, from the other side of the meadow, came the screech of the jay, loud and foreboding. Bambi turned suddenly round and ran after Gobbo. He caught up with him and Morena just before they had reached the oak tree. "Do you hear that?" he called to him. "Hear what?" asked Gobbo in puzzlement. The jay at the other side of the meadow screeched again. "Can you really not hear it?" Bambi repeated. "No," said Gobbo calmly. "That means danger," Bambi insisted. Now a magpie appeared, chattering as he went, and immediately after there was another one, and then, just as promptly, a third. At the same time the jay screeched once again, and the crows gave signals from high in the air. Feline began to implore them too. "Don't go out there, Gobbo!" "It's dangerous." Even Morena now began to urge him. "Stay here. For my sake, stay here today. It's dangerous." Gobbo stood there and grinned in embarrassment. "Danger, danger. Why should I be bothered about that?" The danger of the moment gave Bambi an idea. "At least let Morena go out first, then we'll know." He had not finished speaking before Morena had already slipped out there. All three stood there and looked at her. Bambi and Feline held their breath. Gobbo was openly patient, as if he wanted to let the others have their foolish way. They watched as Morena walked step by step onto the meadow slowly, her head raised high, her legs hesitant. She looked round and smelt the air on every side. She suddenly turned round, as quick as lightning, a high leap, and, as if blown in by a storm, she was back in the thicket.
He's there,"
she whispered in a voice that was choking in horror. Her whole body was shaking. I saw him. He is there," she stammered. "Up there. He's standing there, by the alder tree. Let's get away from here," Bambi called. "Now, let's get away. Come away," Feline implored them. And Morena, who by now was barely able to speak, whispered, "Please, Gobbo, I beg of you, come away with us, I beg of you." But Gobbo remained calm. "Run away then, run away as far as you can," he said. "I'm not stopping you, am I? If he's there, I'll go over and say hello." There was nothing that could have held Gobbo back. They stayed where they were and watched him as he went out onto the meadow. They stayed behind because his immense confidence had a kind of power over them and at the same time held their terror for him in its place. They were unable to move from the spot. Gobbo stood out in the open on the meadow and looked around to find the alder. Now he seemed to have found it. Now he seemed to have glimpsed him. Then the thunder crack sounded. The sound threw Gobbo into the air. He suddenly turned round and, leaping as fast as he could, flew back into the thicket. When he arrived, they were still standing there, unable to move because of their horror. They heard the whistling of his breath. He did not stop, but hurled himself forward in unthinking leaps. They turned to him, surrounded him, and gave themselves up to full flight. But very soon Gobo collapsed. Marina immediately stood still, close beside him. Bambi and Faline were a little further away, ready to flee at any time. Gobo's flank had been torn open, and he lay there with his bloody innards protruding. He made a dull movement of turning and raising his head. "Marina," he said with some effort. "Marina!" He didn't recognize me. His voice broke off. From the bushes between them and the meadow, there came an uproarious noise, showing no thought of any need to be careful. Marina lowered her head down to Gobo.
He's coming,
she whispered urgently.
Gobo, he's coming. Can't you stand up and come with me?
Gobo once again weakly turned his head and raised it. His legs twitched violently, but he continued to lie where he was. With a clattering and a cracking and a loud rustling, the bushes divided, and he entered. Marina could see him from a short distance. She slowly crept back, disappeared behind the undergrowth, and hurried to join Bambi and Feline. She turned around once more, and there she saw him as he bent down over the fallen Gobo and took hold of him. Then she heard Gobo's pitiful scream of death. Chapter 21. Bambi was by himself. He went over to the water that flowed quietly between the reeds and the willows on the bank. Ever since he had been keeping to his own company, he had come more and more often down here. There were not many paths here, and he almost never came across any other deer. But that was just what he wanted, for his thoughts had become earnest and his spirit was heavy. He did not know what was happening inside him, and nor did he try to work it out. He merely tried to puzzle it out in a confused way, with no plan, and it seemed to him that his whole life had become darker. When he went to stand at the riverside, he would spend a long time there. He went to a place where the water flowed in a gentle curve and where it was possible to see a long way. The cool breathing of the ripples brought an unfamiliar smell with it, a smell that was refreshing but bitter, a smell that awoke a sense of being carefree and trusting. Bambi stood there and watched the ducks as they enjoyed one another's company. They chatted with each other without cease, friendly, serious, and clever. There was a couple of mothers there, each of them surrounded by a crowd of children who received regular instruction and who never tired of learning. Sometimes one of the mothers would give out a warning sign, and the young ducks would rush out in all directions. Without hesitation, they would glide out as if broadcast from a sower's hand, and would do so in complete silence. At one moment Bambi saw how the little ones, who still could not fly, would go into the thick reeds carefully, without touching any of the stalks which, if they moved, would betray their locations. Here and there he saw their small, dark bodies in among the rushes as they slowly hid themselves away. Then he saw nothing more of them. A short call from the mother, and they would all swarm around her in an instant. In this instant her flock had gathered back together, and they began, as before, to cruise along thoughtfully. This filled Bambi with admiration every time he saw it. It was like a work of art. One time, after one of these brief alarms, he asked one of the mothers, "What was all that for?" "I've been watching carefully, but didn't see anything." "Well, there was nothing to see," the duck replied. Another time, one of the children gave the warning signal. He turned round as quick as a flash, steered his way through the rushes to the bank where Bambi was standing, and stepped up onto it. Bambi asked the little one, "What happened now then?" "I didn't see anything." "Well, there was nothing to see," the young duck answered. Like a wise old man, he shook his feathers, carefully laid the tips of his wings down into the right place, and went back into the water. But Bambi continued to think about the ducks. He understood that they were more watchful than he was, that their hearing was sharper and their eyesight better. When he stood here, the anxiety that at other times he was always full was slightly relieved, and he enjoyed talking with the ducks. They did not talk about things he heard about so often from the others. They talked about the capacious sky, about the wind and the distant fields where they would enjoy lots of delicious food. Bambi sometimes saw something small rushing past him through the air, keeping close to the bank like a fire-colored lightning flash. "Sirrah!" shouted the kingfisher gently for himself as he sped past, a tiny whizzing dot. He glowed in blue and green, sparkled in red, lit himself up, and he was gone. Bambi was amazed, he was enchanted, and he wished he could see this remarkable stranger close up, so he called to him. "Don't bother with him," the coot said up to him from the dense rushes. "Don't bother with him, you'll never get an answer from him." "Where are you?" asked Bambi, and peered round in the reeds. But the laughter of the coot came up loud and clear from a quite different place. "I'm over here." "He's a bad-tempered bloke, him who you were trying to talk to just now. He don't talk with anyone. There's no point in trying to call to him." "He's so beautiful," said Bambi. "Yeah, but he's no good," the coot replied, again from a different place. "Why do you say that?" Bambi inquired. The coot answered, again from a totally different place. "He can't be bothered about any one or anything. It don't matter what happens. He never says hello to anyone, and he never replies if anyone says hello to him. He never makes the alarm call when danger comes along, and he's never spoken a word to anyone." "The poor," Bambi started to say. The coot continued speaking, and his cheerful, cheeping voice now again came from a quite different place. "I suppose he thinks we're all jealous of that couple of colors he has in his feathers. I suppose that's why he don't want to let anyone get a closer look at him." "You're not letting me get a look at you either," Bambi suggested. The coot immediately appeared in front of him. "Well, there's nothing to look at about me, is there?" came his simple reply. There he stood, slender, the water glittering on his back, his simple clothing, his elegant figure, ever moving, content, and in a moment he was once more gone. "I don't know how you can be wondering for so long about a little speck," his voice came from the water. "And," again from a different place, he added, "it's boring to keep on about a single speck. It's dangerous and all." Again from another different place he proclaimed loud, triumphantly, and gaily, "You've got to keep moving. If you want to stay safe and get your belly full, you've got to keep moving." Bambi was startled by a gentle rustling in the grass. He looked round. There, in the bushes, he glimpsed something reddish which disappeared into the rushes. At the same time there came a warm but sharp trembling in his breath. The fox slipped by. Bambi wanted to call to the duck and stamped on the ground as a warning. There was a rustling and the reeds suddenly divided. The water splashed and the duck screamed in confusion. Bambi heard the clatter of her wings, saw the whiteness of her body in the shimmering greenness, and now he saw how her wings were flapping loudly and whipped against the cheeks of the fox. Then all became quiet. Very soon afterwards the fox came up into the bushes with the duck in his jaws. Her neck hung down loosely, her wings still moved feebly. The fox paid no attention. He looked sideways at Bambi, and his bulging eyes seemed to be jeering, and he slipped slowly away into the thick woods. Bambi stood there, motionless. Some of the older ducks had clattered up onto the bank. They flew around in confusion caused by the horror of what they had seen. The coot sounded shrill warning cries to every side. The tits in the bushes twittered excitedly. The young ducks pushed themselves into the rushes and, having become orphans, lamented with gentle tones. The kingfisher rushed by along the bank. "Please," called the young ducks, "please, have you seen our mother?" "Srrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr," the kingfisher shrieked, and seemed to sparkle as he rushed past. "What's that to me?" Bambi turned round and left. He wandered through a dense wilderness of goldenrods, passed through a group of tall beech trees, went through ancient hazel bushes, until he reached the edge of the great trench. Here he wandered round at random in the hope of coming across the elder. It was a long time since he had last seen him, not since Gobbo met his end. Now he saw him in the distance and ran towards him. For a while they walked beside each other in silence. Then the elder asked, "Well, do they still talk about him?" Bambi understood that he meant Gobo and answered, "I don't know, I'm almost always by myself." He hesitated, "But I can't stop thinking about him all the time." "Ah, ah," said the elder. "Are you by yourself now?" "Yes," said Bambi expectantly, but the elder remained silent. They walked on. Suddenly the elder stopped. "Can't you hear it?" Bambi listened. No, he heard nothing. "Come on," the elder called as he hurried forward. Bambi followed him. The elder stopped again. "Can you still not hear it?" Bambi now could make out a sound that he did not understand. It was as if twigs were being pulled down and then allowed to snap up again. At the same time, there were dull and irregular thumps on the ground. Bambi wanted to flee. "Come with me!" the elder called and ran in the direction of the noise. Bambi dared to ask, "Is it not dangerous there?" "It is," the elder replied mysteriously. "It's very dangerous there." They were soon able to see the twigs that were being pulled down from below and were being shaken, and they saw the vigor with which they sprang back up. They came closer and noticed that there was a little path running through the middle of the bushes. Bambi's friend the hare lay on the ground, threw himself back and forth, fidgeted about, lay still, fidgeted some more, and each of his movements tore at the twigs above him. Bambi became aware of a dark stripe, something like a tendril. It became stiff and dropped down onto the hare, where it wound itself around his neck. By now the hare must have heard that there was somebody coming. He hurled himself into the air, fell back to the ground, wanted to flee, defeated. He rolled himself into ball and quivered. "Keep still," the elder ordered him, and then, in a gentle and sympathetic voice that struck at Bambi's heart, he went over close to the hare and repeated, "Stay calm, my friend, it's only me. Don't move at all. Just keep very still." The hare lay motionless, flat on the ground. His breathing was tense, and it made a gentle sound. The elder took the twig with the peculiar tendril into his mouth, pulled it down, turned round elegantly, held it firmly against the ground under his hard hoof, and did away with it with a single blow of his crown. Then he turned to the hare. "Keep still," he said, "even if it hurts." With his head turned to one side, he laid one of the points of his crown against the hare's neck and pressed it deeply into his fur behind his ears, felt around for something, and gave a yank. The hare began to writhe. The elder immediately moved back. "Keep still," he ordered. "I'm trying to save your life." He began anew. The hare lay still but quivering. Bambi watched in astonishment. He was speechless. Now the elder had pushed one point of his antlers firmly into the hare's fur, trying to get it under whatever was slung around the hare's neck. He was nearly on his knees, but twisted his head as if drilling a hole, pushed his crown deeper and deeper until finally, whatever it was gave way and began to loosen. The hare drew breath and at the same time gave in to his fear. His pain broke loudly out from him. "Ee, ee, ee, ee," he wailed. The elder stopped what he was doing. "Do be quiet," he chided. "Be quiet." His mouth was very close to the hare's shoulder. One of the points of his crown was between the ears, and it looked as if he had impaled the hare. "How can you be so stupid and start to cry?" he gently grumbled. "Do you want to get the fox to come here? Yes? Well then, keep quiet." He continued to work, slowly, carefully, attentively. Suddenly the sling around the hare's neck began to slip off. The hare slid out of it, and he was free before he even knew it. He made a step or two and then sat there in a daze. Then he hopped away, slowly at first, shyly, but all the time getting faster until he ran away in wild leaps. Bambi looked at him as he went. "And not a word of thanks," he declared in astonishment. "He still hasn't quite come back to his senses," the elder said. Whatever it was that had been around the hare's neck lay now in a circle on the ground. Bambi kicked at it lightly. It made a jangling noise, and Bambi was startled. That was the sort of noise that did not belong in the forest.
Him?
Bambi asked quietly. The elder nodded. They walked on calmly next to each other. "You always need to be careful," said the elder. "When you're walking along a path, you should always pay attention to the twigs on the trees and bushes. Stretch your crown out, up and down, and if you ever hear that jangling noise, turn right round. But if it's the time of year when you're not carrying a crown on your head, you need to be doubly careful. I stopped going along the paths a long time ago." Bambi was alarmed and wondered what the elder had meant. But he's not," he said to himself in bewilderment. The elder answered, "No, he's not in the forest right now." But it's him," said Bambi, shaking his head. The elder continued, and his voice was full of bitterness. "What was it that Gobbo said to you? Did he not give you a lecture about how he is almighty, how he is responsible of everything?" Bambi spluttered. "Is he not almighty then?" "He's no more almighty than he is responsible for all," the elder complained. Bambi was disheartened. "But what about Gobbo? He was good to Gobbo. He was good to Gobbo." The elder stopped where he was. "Do you really think he was, Bambi?" he asked sadly. This was the first time that the elder had addressed him by his name. "I don't know," declared Bambi in anguish. "I just don't understand it," the elder replied slowly. "If we are to live, we need to learn and to be vigilant." Chapter 22. One morning, something very bad happened to Bambi. The feeble gray of dawn was creeping its way through the forest. A milky white mist rose from the meadow, and the quiet that breathes the change in the time of day stretched itself out everywhere. The crows were still not awake, nor the magpies, and even the jay was asleep. Bambi had come across Feline in the night. She looked sadly at him and was very shy.
"I'm by myself so much," she said quietly. "I'm by myself too,"
Bambi replied hesitantly. Feline seemed disheartened and asked, "Why don't you stay with me any more?" And it pained Bambi to see that Feline, once so gay, once so bold, had become earnest and downtrodden. "I have to be alone," he replied. He had wanted to say it in a soothing way, but it sounded hard. He heard it himself. Feline looked at him and quietly asked, "Do you still love me?" Bambi did not hesitate and answered, "I don't know." She went calmly away and left him alone. There he stood under the great oak tree at the edge of the meadow, looked carefully out there to see that all was safe, and drank in the morning wind. Every time there had been a storm, the air was moist and refreshing. It smelt of the earth, of dew and grass, and of wet wood. Bambi breathed deep. He suddenly felt free in a way he had not felt for a long time. He felt gay as he stepped out onto the misty meadow. Then came a clap of thunder. Bambi felt as if something had shoved him, and it made him stagger. In a panic, he leapt back into the woods and continued running. He did not understand what had happened. He was quite unable to collect his thoughts, but just kept on running. His terror kept a tight grip on his heart and took his breath away as he blindly rushed forward. But then, suddenly, a piercing pain ran through him. He did not think he would be able to endure it. He felt how it ran hotly over his left thigh, a narrow, burning thread starting from the place where he had first felt the pain. It forced him to stop running. It forced him to walk more slowly. Then his shoulders and legs seemed to go lame. He collapsed to the ground. He was seen by Labsal as he just lay there resting. "Get up, Bambi!" "Get up?" The elder stood beside him and pushed him gently on his shoulder. Bambi wanted to retort, "I can't," but the elder said again, "Get up! Get up!" And there was such urgency in his voice and such tenderness that Bambi said nothing. Even the pain he felt in every part of his body abated for a moment. Now the elder spoke hurriedly and in fear. "Get up! You've got to get away from here, son!" Son, it seemed to be as soon as this word slipped out of his mouth that Bambi hurried back up on his feet. "Right then," said the elder. He took a deep breath and continued to urge Bambi on. "Now, come with me. Just stay with me all the time." He hurried forward. Bambi followed him even though he was yearning to drop to the ground, to lay still and rest. The elder seemed able to see this and spoke to Bambi without pause. "Whatever the pain is, you've now got to just bear it. You can't even think about lying down. Never think of that at all, as that by itself will make you tired. Now you've got to just save yourself. Do you understand, Bambi? Save yourself, otherwise you're lost. Just bear in mind that he's coming after you. Do you understand, Bambi? He won't show any mercy. He'll just kill you. Come with me. Just come with me. It'll soon be gone." It's got to go. Bambi no longer even had the strength to think of anything. The pain surged up in every step he took, robbed him of his breath and of his senses, and the line of heat that burned down into his shoulder brought a deep, delirious excitement into his heart. The elder went round in a broad circle. It took a long time. Through his veil of pain and weakness, Bambi was astonished to see that they were suddenly beside the great oak once more. The elder stopped and smelt the ground. "Here," he whispered. "Here, he's here. Here, too, the dog. Come with me, faster." They ran on. The elder suddenly stopped. "Can you see?" he exclaimed. "This is where you were lying on the ground." Bambi saw where the grass had been pressed down and saw a broad pool of his own blood soaking down into the ground. The elder smelt the place carefully. "They've already been here, him and the dog," he said. "Now, come with me." He walked slowly on, continually stopping to smell the ground. Bambi noticed the drops of red on the leaves of the bushes and on the grass. "We've already been past here," he thought, although he was not able to speak out loud. "Good," said the elder almost gaily. "Now we've got behind them." He went for a while in the same direction. Then he turned suddenly to one side and set off in a new circle. Bambi staggered on behind him. They arrived at the big oak tree once again, though this time from the other direction. They arrived once again at the place where Bambi had fallen, and then, once again, the elder took a new direction. "Eat some of this," he ordered. He had stopped, pushed the grass to one side and pointed to some tiny leaves, short and dark green, fat and fluffy, that were sprouting out of the bare ground. Bambi did as he was told. The leaves were horribly bitter and had a repulsive smell. After a while the elder asked, "How are you feeling now?" "I'm feeling better," Bambi promptly answered. All of a sudden he was able to speak again. He could think clearly. He felt less tired. After another pause, the elder ordered him, "You go ahead now," and after he had been walking behind Bambi for some time, he said, "At last." They stopped. "Your blood has stopped running out from your wound, so it won't show where you are anymore. He and his dog won't be able to find where to go to take your life." The elder looked very tired, but there was cheer in his voice. "Come on then," he continued. "Now you need to have a rest." They arrived at the broad gully that Bambi had never been across. The elder climbed down into it. Bambi tried to follow, but it took him a lot of effort to climb up the steep slope on the other side. The fierce pain he felt began once more to go through him. He fell over, pulled himself back up, fell over again, and began to gasp for breath. "I can't help you here," said the elder. "You've got to get up here yourself." And Bambi did get up to the top. He began once more to feel the hot band of pain that shot down his shoulder and felt for the... "You're bleeding again," said the elder. "That's what I expected. It's not too much, though, and," he added in a whisper, "it doesn't matter any more." They made their way very slowly through a grove of beech trees as high as the sky. The ground was soft and smooth. It did not take too much effort to go through it. Bambi yearned to just lay himself down here, to stretch himself out and not to move a finger. He just could not go any further. His head hurt, there was a buzzing in his ears, his nerves were quivering, and his fever began to shake him. His eyes went dim. There was nothing more inside him than the yearning for rest and a vague astonishment at how his life had suddenly been interrupted and altered, at how he had once used to go through the forest in good health and without injury, just that morning, just an hour earlier. It seemed to him now like the happiness of a distant time that had long since vanished. They passed through a low thicket of oaks and dogwood. The fallen trunk of a beech tree lay across their path, deeply embedded in the bushes. It was very big, and they could see no way of getting past it. "Now we've got there," Bambi heard the elder say. He walked the length of the beech trunk, and Bambi followed him, nearly falling into a hole in the ground. "All right," said the elder. "You can lie down here." Bambi sank down and did not try to move any more. He saw that the hole in the ground under the fallen beech trunk was deeper than it had seemed, creating a small chamber. The bushes at the edge of it closed over him as he entered so that nobody could see in. Once he was down there, it was as if he had disappeared. "You'll be safe here," said the elder. "Stay here, and don't go anywhere." Bambi lay in the warm earth, the bark of the fallen tree slowly rotting above him. It listened to his pain as it grew inside his body, became stronger, then abated, became weaker and went down, steadily softer and softer. Sometimes he would struggle outside where he would stand, weak and unsteady, on his tired and unreliable legs, and take a few steps to look for food. He began to eat herbs that he had never before noticed. Now they had suddenly begun to offer themselves to him, called to him with their scent that had a strange and tempting sharpness. What he had until then despised, what he would have thrown away if he inadvertently got it between his lips, now seemed tasty and spicy. Many little leaves, many short stalks continued to seem unappetizing even now, but he nonetheless ate them under some kind of compulsion, and his wounds healed more quickly, and he could feel how his strength was coming back to him. He had been saved, but he still did not leave his chamber. He would only come out at night and take a few steps around, but in the daytime he would remain quietly in his bed. It was only now, when his body was feeling no more pain, that Bambi realized all that had happened to him. He was able to think once more, and a feeling of great horror arose within him. His character had been shattered. He was not able to simply wipe it away, not able to stand up and run about as he had before. He lay there and felt many emotions, alternately disgusted, ashamed, astonished, disheartened, but soon afterwards full of melancholy, soon afterwards full of happiness. The elder was nearby at all times. At first he was at Bambi's side day and night. Then there were times when he left him alone for short periods, especially when he saw that Bambi was lost in his thoughts. But there was no time when he was not close by. One day there had been storm and thunder and lightning. The sky had been swept clean, and that evening the sun, as it went down, shone over a sky that was blue. The blackbirds sang out loudly from the treetops, the finches flapped their wings, the tits whispered in the undergrowth, in the grass and under the bushes close to the ground. The metallic bursts of the pheasant's cries could be heard, the woodpecker laughed in loud celebration, and the pigeons cooed from the yearning for love that was inside them. Bambi stepped out from his underground chamber. Life was good. The elder was standing there as if he had been waiting. They wandered slowly off together. But Bambi never went back across that gully, never went back to see the others. Chapter 23. One night, when the autumn leaves were falling and whispering through the whole of the forest, the tawny owl gave his shrill cry through the treetops. Then he waited. But Bambi had already seen him in the distance through the now sparse foliage, and now he kept still. The owl flew closer and gave his shrill cry even louder. Then he waited. But this time, too, Bambi said nothing. The owl could not hold back any longer. "Aren't you startled, then?" he asked discontentedly. "Oh, yes," Bambi answered gently. "A little bit." "Well," the owl grumbled, Only a little bit. You always used to be terribly shocked. It was always such a pleasure to see how shocked you were. What's happened then? What's happened that means you're only a little bit shocked? He was annoyed and repeated, "Just a little bit." The owl had grown old, and that had made him even more vain and even more sensitive than he had been. Bambi wanted to answer. "I was never startled before either, but I just said I was because I knew you liked it." But he decided he would rather keep this information to himself. He felt sorry for the good old owl as he sat there being cross. He did his best to calm him down. "Maybe it's because I was just thinking about you," he said. "What?" The owl became cheerful again. "What? You were thinking about me?" "Yes," answered Bambi hesitantly, just when began to screech. "Otherwise, of course, I would have been just as startled as ever." "Really?" the owl purred. Bambi could not resist. What harm could there be in it? Let the little old boy have some pleasure. "Really," he confirmed and went on. "It pleases me. It goes through all my limbs when I suddenly hear you like that." The owl puffed up his feathers, turned himself into a soft brown and light gray fluffy ball, and he was very pleased. "That's very nice of you to have been thinking about me. Very nice indeed," he cooed gently. "It's such a long time since we saw each other." "A very long time," said Bambi. "Maybe it's that you don't go along the same old paths anymore," inquired the owl. "No," Bambi spoke slowly. "I don't go along the same old paths anymore." "I've been seeing a lot more of the world too lately," remarked the owl, puffing his chest out. He did not tell Bambi that he had been driven out of the old territory he had inherited from his ancestors by a young and reckless lad. "You can't always stay on the same spot," he added. Then he waited for Bambi's reply. But Bambi had gone. By now he had learned the art of disappearing in silence almost as well as the elder. The owl was dismayed. "Shameless," he grumbled. He shook himself, buried his beak into his plumage, and philosophized to himself. "You should never think you could make friends with these posh types. They might seem ever so likable, but one day they'll shamelessly, and then you sit there looking stupid, just like I am now." Suddenly he fell vertically down to the ground like a stone. He had seen a mouse, which then, caught in his talons, had the time to squeal just once. He tore the mouse into pieces because he was so angry. He pulled the head off this mouthful quicker than he normally would, and then he flew away. "What does Bambi matter to me?" he thought. "What does any of those posh people matter to me? Nothing. They don't matter at all." He started to screech, so shrill, so long, that a pair of wood pigeons he passed by were woken up and, with much loud flapping of wings, they fell out of where they had been sleeping. The storm blew through the woods for many days, tearing the last of the leaves from the twigs and branches. The trees now stood there naked. In the gray of morning twilight, Bambi was making his way home in order to sleep together with the elder in their chamber. A thin voice called to him 2 times, 3 times in quick succession. He stayed where he was. Then the squirrel swooped down from the tree like lightning and sat on the ground in front of him. "It really is you, then," he piped with respectful astonishment. "I recognized you straight away when you passed by me. I didn't really want to believe it. How come you're here?" Bambi asked. The cheerful little face in front of him took on a worried expression. "The oak tree is gone," the squirrel began to complain. "My lovely old oak tree, do you remember?" "It's terrible. He's cut it down." Bambi lowered his head in sadness. It really did hurt his soul to hear about the wonderful ancient tree. "It all happened so quickly," the squirrel told him. "All of us who lived on the old tree, we all ran away, and we could only watch as he bit through it with an enormous blinking tooth. The tree screamed out loud from his wound. He just kept on screaming, and the tooth screamed too. It was horrible to hear it. Then that poor, lovely tree fell over. Out onto the meadow it made all of us cry. Bambi was silent. "Yes," said the squirrel with a sigh. "He can do anything. He's omnipotent." He looked at Bambi with eyes wide open and pricked up his ears, but Bambi was silent. "We've all got nowhere to live now," the squirrel continued. "I don't even have any idea of where the others have got to. I came over here, but it'll take me ages to find another tree like that." "The old oak tree," muttered Bambi to himself. "I've known it since I was a child. No, but it's good to see that it's really you." The squirrel became quite contented. "We all thought you must have died a long time ago. But there were some who said you were still alive. Some said that someone or other had seen you, but we couldn't find out anything definite, so we just supposed it was an empty rumor." The squirrel looked at him searchingly. "Well, that was because you didn't come back." He sat there waiting for an answer. You could see that he was very keen to know what had happened. Bambi was silent. But he too felt a slight anxious curiosity. He wanted to ask about Feline, about Aunt Aina, about Ronno and Carus, about everyone he had known as a child. But he was silent. The squirrel continued to sit in front of Bambi and examined him. "Look at that crown," he exclaimed in admiration. "What a crown! Apart from the old prince, no one has a crown like that, no one anywhere in the forest." Earlier, Bambi would have felt very pleased and flattered by an observation like this. Now he just said wearily, "Yes, I suppose so." The squirrel nodded his head vigorously. "It really is," he said in astonishment. "Really, you're beginning to go gray." Bambi walked away. The squirrel saw that the discussion was at an end and swung up into the branches. "Bye then," he called down. "Look after yourself. I enjoyed seeing you again. If I see any of your old friends, I'll tell them you're still alive. They'll all be glad to hear it." Bambi heard this and once again felt those slight stirrings in his heart. But it said nothing. "You have to stay alone," the elder had taught him when Bambi was still a child. And the elder had shown him many things, told him many secrets, and continued doing so up to the present day. But of all the things he had been taught, this was the most important. You have to stay alone. If you're going to preserve your life, if you want to understand existence, if you want to become wise, you have to stay alone. "But," asked Bambi one time, "but what about the two of us? We're always together nowadays. We soon won't be," the elder had retorted. That had only been a few weeks earlier. Now it again occurred to Bambi, and it occurred to him very suddenly, that the very first thing the elder had said to him had been that he had to stay alone. That had been when Bambi was still a child and was calling for his mother. Then the elder had come up to him and asked, "Are you not able to be alone?" Bambi walked on. Chapter 24. The forest lay once more under snow and was silent under its thick white coat. All that could be heard was the cawing of the crows. Only now and then came the anxious croaking of a magpie or the shy, gentle, twittering conversations of the tits. Then the frost became harder and everything was silent. Now the coldness made the air itself ring. One morning the deep quiet was torn apart by the barking of dogs. It was an incessant, hurried barking that drove its way quickly through the forest, a sharp, curt, and belligerent yapping that made him sound insane. In the chamber under the fallen beech trunk, Bambi raised his head and looked at the elder who was lying next to him. The elder answered Bambi's look. "It's nothing that need concern us." The two of them nonetheless listened. They lay in their chamber. They had the old beech trunk as a protective roof over them. Icy draughts were kept out by the height of the snow, and the tangle of bushes hid them like a dense grid from any spying eye. The barking came nearer, angry, breathless, heated. It could only have been a small dog. It came ever nearer. Now they could hear the gasping for breath at twice the speed, and through the angry barking they heard a gentle growling, as if from pain. Bambi became uneasy, but the elder again said, "It's nothing that need concern us." They remained still and quiet in the warmth of their chamber, peering out to see what was happening outside. The rustling in the twigs came ever nearer. Snow fell from the boughs as they were suddenly run past. A dust of snow was kicked up from the ground. Now it was possible to see who was coming. Through snow and bushes, through roots and twigs there came, jumping and creeping and sliding, the old fox. Immediately after him the dog broke through. It was a very small dog on short legs. One of the fox's front legs was broken, and just above the break his fur was ripped open. He held the broken leg high up in front of him. Blood was spurting from his wounds. His breath was wheezy. His eyes were staring far ahead because of his horror and the efforts he was having to make. He was beside himself with terror and panic. He was confused and exhausted. He swung round in a swiping movement which startled the dog so that he stepped back a few paces. The fox sat down on his hind legs. He could go no further. He held the shot foreleg up in a way that was pitiful. His mouth was open. Sucking in his cheeks, he spat at the dog. He, though, was not quiet for a moment. His high, shrill voice now became fuller and deeper. "Here!" he shouted. "Here! Here he is! Here! Here!" Here! He was not shouting at the fox. At that moment he was not speaking to him at all, but was clearly calling to somebody else who was still a long way away. Bambi and the elder were both aware that it was him whom the dog was calling. The fox knew it too. The blood was now gushing down from his breast and into the snow, and built up a gently steaming scarlet stain on the icy white layer. The fox seemed to be having a mild fit. His shattered foreleg had no strength in it, and it sank down, but when it touched the cold snow, a burning pain shot through it. Arduously he raised it up and held it, jittering, in the air in front of him. "Leave me alone," he began to say. "Leave me alone." He spoke quietly and imploringly. He was very dull and disheartened. "No, no, no!" The dog threw back at him in a malevolent howl. "I beg of you," said the fox. "I can't go any further. I've had it. Just let me go home. At least let me die in peace." "No, no, no!" the dog howled. The fox begged him even harder. "But we're related," he lamented. "We're almost brothers. Let me go home. Let me die among my own folk. We're almost brothers, you and me." "No, no, no!" the dog said excitedly. Now the fox sat upright. His lovely pointed snout sank down to his bloodied breast. His eyes rose up and stared at the dog right into his face. In a quite different voice, in control of himself, sad and bitter, he snarled, "Aren't you ashamed of yourself, you traitor? No, 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 no!" the dog yelled. The fox, however, went on. "You turncoat, you defector!" His lacerated body became stiff with hatred and contempt. "You're just his henchman," he hissed. "You miserable, you seek us out where he couldn't find us, you persecute us in places that he can't get to. You turn us in, and all of us are your relatives. You turn me in, and you and I are nearly brothers, and you just stand there. Are you not ashamed of yourself?" Suddenly many loud new voices were heard around them. "Traitor!" called the magpies from the trees. "Henchman!" screeched the jays. "Miserable!" squealed the weasel. "Defector!" spat the polecat. Shrill hisses and screeches came out from all the trees and bushes, and from the air came the screeching of the crows. "Henchman!" All had hurried close. All had listened to the quarrel from the trees above or from a safe hiding place on the ground. The disgust expressed by the fox released the old, bitter disgust that they all felt, and the blood steaming inside of them on the snow made them furious and made them lose all their reserve. The dog looked around him. "You," he called, "what do you want? What do you know about it? What are you talking about? All of you belong to him, just like I belong to him." But me, well, I love him, I pray to him, I serve him. But you don't know that he's in charge here. You're pitiful, you are. You can't rebel against him. He's the Almighty. He's above all of us. Everything you've got comes from him. Everything that grows and lives, it all comes from him. The dog was shaking in his outrage. "Traitor!" the squirrel screamed. "Yes," hissed the fox. "You're a traitor. Nobody but you're the only one." They danced about in self-righteous anger. "I'm the only one? You liar. Do you think there aren't loads and loads of others who are with him? The horse, the cows, the lamb, the chickens, and some of you, all your species, there are loads who are with him, who pray to him and serve him. Rabble!" hissed the fox, full of boundless contempt. The dog could control himself no longer and hurled himself at the fox's throat. A snarling, spitting, gasping bundle, wild and whirring, they rolled in the snow, snapping at each other. Hair flew up, snow flew up, fine drops of blood flew up. But the fox was not able to maintain the fight for long. After just a few seconds, he lay there on his back, showed his pale belly, twitched, stretched himself out, and died. The dog shook him a few more times, then dropped him into the churned-up snow, stood there with his legs wide apart, and once more called out in a full, deep voice, "There! There! There he is!" The others were disgusted and fled away in all directions. "Horrible!" said Bambi in his chamber to the elder. "Worst of all," the elder replied, "is that they believe in what the dog just said. They believe it. They live a life full of fear. They hate him and they hate themselves, and they kill themselves for his sake." Chapter 25. There came a break in the cold and a pause in the middle of winter. The earth drank in the melting snow in great draughts, so that broad stretches of naked earth could be seen everywhere. The blackbirds were not singing yet, but when they flew up from the ground where they had been hunting for worms, or when they flapped from tree to tree, they let out a long, shrill, cheerful cry which was almost like birdsong. The woodpecker began to laugh here and there. Magpies and crows became more chatty. The tits talked gaily with each other, and the pheasants, when they had swung down from the trees where they had been sleeping, now remained in one spot for almost as long as they would in the good times. They would shake their plumage in the morning sunshine and continually burst out with their metallic cry. On mornings like this, Bambi would range out further afield than he normally would. When the sun had barely risen, he arrived at his chamber under the beech tree. Over on the other side, there where he had used to live, there was something moving. Bambi remained hidden in the undergrowth and watched. He was right. Someone of his own species was moving about there, seeking out the patches that were free of snow and setting about the early risen grasses. At first, Bambi wanted to turn round and go away, but then he saw that it was Feline. His first urge was to jump forward and call to her, but he stayed where he was as if rooted to the spot. It was so long since he had last seen Feline. His heart began to beat hotly. Feline was walking slowly, as if she were tired or sad. She looked like her mother now, looked like Aunt Ina, and when Bambi noticed this, it was with painful astonishment. Feline raised her head and looked in his direction, as if she could feel that he was near. Again Bambi felt the urge to go toward her, but again he stayed where he was, powerless and lame. He was unable to move. He saw that Feline had become old and gray. Gay and audacious little Feline, he thought. She used to be so beautiful, so nimble. His entire childhood suddenly shimmered up in him. The meadow, the paths his mother led him along, the happy games with Gobbo and Feline, the good grasshopper and the butterfly, the struggle with Carus and Ronno by which he had won Feline for himself. He suddenly felt happy again, but none the less shaken. Over there, Feline was walking away with her head sunk down to the ground, slow, tired, and sad. At that moment, Bambi loved her with a gush of tender pity. He wanted to cross through the hole under the beech trunk, which for so long had separated him from her and from the others, wanted to fetch her back, to talk to her about the time when they had been children, above all to talk about the past. As he thought this, he watched her as she went on through the bare bushes and finally disappeared from sight. He stood there for a long time, looking in her direction. A clap of thunder crashed. Bambi was startled. That was here, on this side of the hole, not very close, but here, on the side where he was. Another crash of thunder came, and then another. Bambi made a few steps deeper back into the thicket, where he kept still and listened. Everything was quiet. He crept carefully home. The elder was already there, but had not gone down into their chamber. He just stood next to the fallen beech trunk, as if he had been waiting. "Where have you been all this time?" he asked, and he was so serious that Bambi remained silent. "Did you hear that just now?" The elder went on after a pause. "Yes," Bambi answered, "3 times." "He's in the forest." "Clearly," the elder nodded, and he repeated with a strange inflection, "He is in the forest. We need to go." "Where?" Bambi could not stop himself from asking. "Over there," said the elder, and his voice was heavy. "Over there where he is now." Bambi was alarmed. "Don't be frightened," the elder went on. "Come with me now and don't be afraid." "I'm glad I've got the chance to take you there and let you see it." He hesitated and gently added, "before I go." Bambi was taken aback at this and stared at the elder. He suddenly became aware of how frail he looked. His head was now entirely white. His face had become very gaunt. His beautiful eyes had lost their sparkle. They had taken on a dull green appearance and seemed to be somehow broken. Bambi and the elder did not go far. They could feel the first winds of a heavy storm blowing at them, a storm that was capable of putting so much threat and dread into their hearts. Bambi stopped, but the elder carried on walking directly towards the storm. Bambi hesitantly followed behind him. The scent of the storm came at them in ever stronger waves and drew them forward. The elder went straight on. Thoughts of flight had sprung into Bambi. He could feel tension in his breast which boiled through his head and all his limbs. They nearly tore him away from the place. He stayed strong and continued to walk behind the elder. Now this malevolent storm had swollen up into something so mighty that there was nothing else it was possible to feel, and so that it was now barely possible to breathe. "There," said the elder, and he stepped to one side. 2 steps away from them, he lay there on the ground on bent and broken bushes and in churned-up snow. Bambi half suppressed a scream of horror, and with a sudden jump he fled, as he had already been wishing to do. He was nearly out of his senses in terror. "Stop!" he heard the elder call. He looked back and saw that the elder was calmly standing there where he was lying on the ground. Beside himself in astonishment, Bambi stepped closer, compelled by his obedience, by his boundless curiosity, by his quaking anticipation. "Come closer, don't be afraid," the elder said. There he lay, his pale, uncovered face looking upwards, his hat a little to the side of him in the snow, and Bambi, who knew nothing about hats, thought that that awful head had been struck into 2 pieces. The hunter's neck was exposed and showed a wound as if it had been cut through. It lay open like a little red mouth. There was still a gentle flow of blood from it. Blood was in his hair, under his nose, and had formed a large pool in the snow, melting it with its warmth. "Here we are, then," the elder quietly began. "We're standing right beside him, and where's the danger now?" Bambi looked down at him as he lay there. His form, his limbs, his hair, all seemed to Bambi to be something gruesome but puzzling. He looked into those broken eyes that stared sightlessly back up at him, and he did not understand. "Bambi," the elder continued, "do you remember what Gobbo said, what the dog said, about what everyone believed? Do you remember?" Bambi was incapable of giving an answer. You can see him there, Bambi, the elder went on. You can see him lying there like any one of us. Listen to me, Bambi. He is not almighty like they say he is. He is not the source from which everything comes, everything that grows and lives. He is not our superior. He is beside us. He is like us, and just like us, he knows fear and need and sorrow. He can be overcome just like us, and now he lies helpless on the ground, just like the rest of us, just as you see him now. They remained silent. "Do you understand me, Bambi?" the elder asked. Bambi answered in a whisper, "I think—" "Tell me what you think, then," the elder ordered him. Bambi blushed and quaked and said, "There's someone else who is above all of us and above him." "The time has come, then, when I can go," the elder said. He turned round and the two of them wandered on for a little while. At a tall ash tree, the elder stopped. "Don't come with me any more, Bambi," he began in a calm voice. "My time is up. Now I need to find a place for the end." Bambi was about to say something. "No," the elder stopped him. "No, at the time I am now approaching, each of us is alone. Farewell, my son. I have loved you very much." The summer's day started being hot as soon as the sun had risen. No wind, no chill of twilight. The sun seemed to be in more of a hurry that day. It rose quickly into the sky and broke out its dazzling flames like a dreadful blaze. The dew on the meadow and on the bushes quickly evaporated. The earth became very dry and crumbly. In the woods it became quiet before its usual time. Only the woodpecker could be heard laughing here and there, and only the pigeons cooed in tireless, fervent tenderness. Deep in a thicket there was a little hidden clearing, giving a little free space, and that is where Bambi was standing. Around his head a swarm of midges danced and sang in the sunshine. From the leaves of the hazel bush beside him came a quiet buzzing. It came closer, and a big cockchafer flew slowly past him, straight through the swarm of midges, higher and higher up to the top of a tree where he intended to sleep until evening. His elegant wing covers stuck out from him, and his wings were bursting with power. "Did you see him?" the midges asked each other. "That's the elder," said one of them. And the others sang, "All of his relatives are already dead, but he's still alive." A couple of very small midges asked, "How long do you think he's going to live?" The others sang their answer, "We don't know. He's outlived all of his family. He's very old, very old, very old." Bambi walked on. "The song of midges," he thought, "song of midges." A tender, anxious call came through to him. The voice of somebody of his own species. "Mother! Mother!" Before they understood what was happening, Bambi was standing there before them. Speechless, they stared at him. "Your mother does not have the time now," Bambi told them sternly. He looked in the little one's eye. "Can't you be by yourself for a while?" The little one and his sister remained silent. Bambi turned away, slipped into the nearest bush, and disappeared, even before two of them could understand what had happened. He walked on. "I like that lad," he thought. "Maybe I'll meet him again when he's a bit bigger." He walked on. "And the little lass," he thought. "She's nice too. That's what Feline looked like when she was a child." He walked on and disappeared into the woods.